Hi my angels, it's Hailey, Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so excited that you are here, and I hope that you are having an absolutely fantastic, magical, beautiful morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you, when this video finally reaches you. Today, we are diving into some bone-chilling true encounters of people who, after making a wrong turn, found themselves in dangerous or disturbing positions. Now, we have yet to dive into anything of this particular sorts yet on my channel, so I'm very excited to get into today's video. And I do want to note that if you guys have any video requests or experiences of your own, make sure to comment them down below. But I am very excited to get into today's video nonetheless. So the first story is called Death's Ditch. I had just started college in a new town pretty far from where I grew up. The town wasn't small by any means, but compared to the big city I grew up in, it definitely felt different for me. I was used to busy roads and people always being around all the time, and at times here, despite being a college town, it felt almost too quiet. It was my first time moving out of my parents' house in my entire life, and I was stoked to finally feel independent. My parents were pretty strict and I lived a pretty sheltered life, so the idea of them not being able to keep tabs on me felt great. The first few months of college were what you could expect, and I found myself settling in well. I'd found a good balance between partying and my academics and had made a fair deal of friends. I was partying more than I ever did back home, but ultimately realized I wasn't much of a drinker. It's pretty easy to make friends when you actually enjoy being DD, and I preferred to go home and find other ways to relax. One of the guys from our college lived about 30 minutes outside of the town, in almost what you would call the country. His family had a barn in the back that he frequently threw parties at. It was nice because everyone could get together and make as much noise as we wanted and never get into any sort of trouble. So when my friend Monica asked if I wanted to go with her, I didn't even hesitate. The party was set to start around 9, so I told Monica I'd get her around 9:30. I told her I wouldn't be drinking so she wouldn't have to worry, and that it would be fun to get out of the house after the amount of studying I'd done the last week. Seriously though, college is no joke. I got to Monica's house at around 9:30, and in true Monica fashion, she was running late. By the time she got ready and pre-drank what would be a deadly amount for me, we were leaving at around 10 p.m. The ride to Matt's house was very, very dark. Once you left the main city roads, you were basically on winding dirt roads the entire way. I paid extra attention to my surroundings in fear of hitting a deer or something. I really wasn't used to driving on roads like this. I made sure to take in every twist and turn and street sign along the way to make sure I was following properly. I did have a GPS, but the service out there was pretty much what you could expect. We got to the party just after 10:30 and everyone was in full swing. There was music playing, a bonfire going, and drinking games all throughout the barn. Monica ran off pretty quickly to find the rest of our friends, and I headed into the barn to watch all the ridiculous games being played. At around 2:30 though, I started getting tired. I wanted to find Monica because the last thing I wanted while driving home on those roads was to have tired eyes, or worse, risk falling asleep. I found Monica by the fire and saw pretty quickly she was rather intoxicated. Surely she'd be ready to go home. Monica didn't want to go yet, but once I told her that she'd have to find another ride then, she reluctantly said her goodbyes. We got into my car, fired up the GPS, and I handed Monica a bottle of water. We got on the road, but something felt ominous. I can only describe it as those dewy, foggy late nights that just feel scarily calm, like the mist is just gonna take you over. I didn't like how little I could see, so I sat up further in my seat and focused extra hard on the road. Monica was looking out the side window. Around 15 minutes into my drive, my GPS completely cut out. It wasn't getting any service. Seriously, I thought, this is the last thing I need. I pulled over to the side of the road and tried to remember the signs I had seen and focused on our way here. I felt like if I could remember the signs at the corner of each dirt road, I might know which direction to head in. I knew that the closer I got to the city, the quicker my GPS would pick back up, and I felt I knew where I was going. So, I turned right. After about 15 minutes of driving down the road, I realized that I didn't recognize any of the roads. I felt we should be close to the city by now, but it felt that we were even further out. Monica was sleeping, but I didn't know what to do, so I shook her awake. I told her that I felt I must have made a wrong turn somewhere and asked her if she had any idea where we were. She was groggy and out of it, so she had no idea. I took a deep breath and tried again to remain calm, replaying our drive in my mind over and over. I decided to turn left this time and head towards where my gut told me the city was. Little did I know I was right, but that turn was a wrong move. We drove up the dirt road for 10 minutes. On either side of us, there were no houses anymore. Nothing but ditches heading into the surrounding forests. It was dark, and I was focused. So focused that I noticed what looked like the body of a woman laying in the middle of the dirt road. I slammed on my brakes immediately. "What the hell?" Monica yelled. "Look," I screamed. "There's a woman in the street." We both sat there in complete shock for what felt like 5 minutes. I had a bad feeling down to my core. "I think she needs our help, Monica." I reached for my seatbelt to unbuckle my seatbelt and put my hand on the door when Monica screams, "Peyton, drive!" I was shocked. Why? I looked over to Monica, who was looking to both sides of the ditches, fear in her eyes like I've never seen. In the ditches, there were people in masks that looked straight out of a Purge movie, holding what looked like axes and bats. I'm sorry, those Purge masks just get me. Like, I don't know what it is. I love the Purge series. I've watched all of the movies, but those masks are like what my nightmares are made of. So freaking creepy. Just as they started to get up, I pressed the gas as hard as I could and swerved around the woman in the street. In my rearview mirror, I watched as the woman in the dress stood up and turned to watch us, as she was joined by about 10 others. I don't think I've ever drove that fast in my entire life. When we got back to campus, we called the police and filed a report. The police said the woman was likely a trap to get us out of our car. To this day, I still don't know what they would have done. Would they have robbed us or something much worse? I feel sick whenever I think about it and avoid country roads as much as I can. Thank goodness Monica saw what she saw. I guess my experience goes to show that sometimes doing what you think is the right and kind thing to do can come back to bite you. I've since graduated college, but I think about this all the time. How one wrong turn could have ruined our lives. I don't know. It's insane, man. And that's the end of that encounter. That genuinely gives me the heebie-jeebies. We have talked about this so many times on my channel, the things that some people will do in order to lure you out of your car or get you to pull over or put you in a vulnerable position. Like, one thing I know for certain is if somebody throws eggs at your windshield, do not put your wipers on, just keep driving, because if you put your wipers on, you won't be able to see it all and will have no choice but to pull over. I've also heard if there's like notes on your car, wait till you're somewhere safe to go and look at the note, because it can often be a distraction. We covered on my channel about car seats on the side of the road and how you should call law enforcement and not pull over yourself, because there have been reported cases where vulnerable women will pull over and see what they think could be a baby and then therefore get attacked. So I think it's just a true testament to the fact you have to be so careful and on high alert at all times in life. I think the hardest thing is when you're a good person and you see something that looks like a dangerous situation or somebody in need, you want to help them because that's in your human nature if you're a good human. But something that I've learned is I think if I was in that position, I would call the police and see what I'm advised to do in that situation, because look at this type of situation. I just said situation so many times, my brain is But yeah, I definitely want to know what you guys think of that one. I can't even imagine how terrifying that must have been. And thank goodness there was room to actually go around the girl. But I would love to know what you guys think, and let's get into the next experience. This next one is titled Mama Bear. I've always been outdoorsy. My mom and pa were just about as down to earth as they come. Every summer we spent the entire summer camping in remote places, learning to live off the land and rough it out, if you will. Hunting, fishing, hiking, all day, every day, and I loved it. When I got older and started a family of my own, I was skipping to take them on the same adventures I'd spent my life on. My wife Laura isn't as outdoorsy as I am, but our son Elliot got those genes for sure. Because Elliot and I enjoy it so much, Laura roughs it out and allows me to make these summer-long family camping adventures happen. We loaded up our truck with all of our supplies and headed into the mountains. This was an area that I hadn't been to in quite a moment, so I was excited to see all the new trails and make new memories with my gal and boy. I want to say though that I was an experienced camper. As I said, I grew up doing this with mom and pa, so I thought I had the knowledge for all the items that I needed, including bear spray. Oh God. Oh, I think I know where this is going. The first few days were springing. We were having a good time, my wife included, and I was really loving the trails they had there. One night before we hit the hay, I told my wife and son that I wanted to walk the same trail we'd done a few days prior for a sunrise stroll. We had done this trail over 3 times now, and they were both tired, so they decided to hang back at camp while I went out for my morning hike. The day started off normal, and I gathered everything I thought I'd need for my hike. It was quiet and peaceful, and you really get lost in your mind in a place like this. I was enjoying my walk when I realized I wasn't paying much attention to the trail itself. I stopped in my tracks and realized this all seems like new territory. Nothing stood out to me. Confused, I tried to remember how much longer I'd been walking than I was supposed to and looked around at all of my paths. I now saw all the different trails you could take, but realized that where I wanted to go was through the forest itself to find that dang trail again. I knew I should have stayed on the path as was advised, but I knew that it would be a heck of a lot faster if I cut through the forest to find the trail I was supposed to turn onto. So I decided to walk through anyway. You never leave the trails! Oh God, where is this going? I got pretty deep into the forest and was about halfway to where I needed to go when I heard what sounded like a snort to the left behind me. I turned my head quickly and realized that about 50 meters away, there was a bear and her bear cubs with a dead deer right in front of them. For a moment, I hoped she didn't see me, but I realized fast she was locked in on me. I had been taught everything you're meant to do in case of an encounter with a bear, but for a moment, my mind went blank. Slowly, I reached for my bear spray, trying to see what Mama would do. I stood still for a moment and tried to look at her without looking her in the eyes. Yeah, never look a bear in the eyes, or really any animal for that matter, as a lot of them view that as a threat and as aggression towards them. So good call on his part. I could see her mouth was opening and closing, and she was making what almost sounded like grunting or huffing, maybe a bit of both. Either way, I knew it was bad. Not only did Mama have her 2 cubs with her, but she had an entire deer they were feasting on. I knew she was in a protective stance, and this was worst case scenario. I slowly started to walk away, and at first Mama just stood there huffing. But just as I started putting a decent amount of distance between us, she began lunging towards me and grunting. I have never felt like the end of my life was near before this moment. She got about a good 30 meters from me before she stopped. She was just standing there, grunting. I had my bear spray in hand, and any closer I was ready to use it, though I knew that with Mamas there are times that just isn't enough. I kept slowly backing up and walking calmly backwards towards the trail. She just stood there, a dripping mouth and grunting. Luckily, she chose not to chase me any further. When I got back to camp, I made sure to report the incident and tell my wife and son we were relocating camps. The park rangers were not happy that I went off the trail. A few weeks later, in that same area, a mama bear attacked a man who went off the trail. I couldn't help but feel like I was the luckiest son of a gun. Luckily, the man survived, though his injuries were pretty bad. Of all my years with Mom and Pa, never did I think I'd be so scared in the mountains. I still wonder how bad things could have been just for me taking that dang wrong turn. And that's the end of that one. So I don't know if you guys actually know this, but my dad lives out in Alberta, Canada, and they have bears and they've had tons of bear encounters. My dad owns bear spray, obviously. And so I've been educated as well on like what to do with certain types of bears because different bears require different reactions from you. It's quite fascinating actually. But I just can't even imagine coming face to face with not only a mama bear and her 2 cubs, but also with a big deer that they're feasting on. Bears can be protective, obviously, over food, but especially mama bears over their cubs. So I just think this was probably a huge lesson for him, turning to where he wasn't supposed to and running into the bears. Well, there you guys have it. I just want to know what you guys think of these particular experiences. Have you guys ever had an experience where maybe you took a wrong turn and you wound off in a very spooky place? Tyler and I once, look at me with all my personal stories today, but Tyler and I once accidentally took a wrong turn in his convertible to a really bad area that we were advised to stay away from, and it was so scary. So I've definitely taken my fair shares of wrong turns, but I'd love to know if you guys have had any experiences. Let me know down in the comment section below, and that is it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my content, I would love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I seriously love you.